G'day. For part one we had a short video of me showing how to use this primitive tap, which is simply a kerf in a cylinder of wood which is driven by a plate which engages the kerf, and it drives a cutter through the nut that you want to tap, and you can advance it by degrees as you go through. It takes about 6, 7, 8 maybe advances in order to tap the nut, but it really doesn't take very long, and it's a very simple device and does a very nice job. So once we've got that functioning, we can then make a jig which we can use on a router in order to cut screw threads. So this is also a pretty simple device. What we need is 2 pieces of wood which I've squared up and screwed together with a small piece of paper in between usually, which tells me. So the first hole is drilled through at the major diameter of the screw, which in this case is 2 inches. When you get to the second piece, you stop, change bits, and drill the second hole at the minor diameter, or the tapping diameter, which in this case is 1 3/4 inches. We then tap a nut in the second piece and provide access for a router bit from underneath. We need quite a bit of access. Now, the trick is, what we want is for the first land of thread to begin just to the left of that access hole, and that the reason for that will become apparent shortly. Now I'll show it to you mounted on the router. Here's one I prepared ahead. So you can fix it to the router base however you like. If you've got a router table, that might work. You'd need to keep in mind 2 things. You need the hole to be sufficiently above the router base so that you can get a boss or a handle in over it. So this is the important part, that the bit matches the shape of that first thread land precisely. Okay, it's sticking up slightly above because it's a pointy bit and we have flat bottomed grooves in our thread, but that's okay, it doesn't matter too much. So once that's nicely in position and set up, we can then put on our guide piece, and the reason for the guide piece is it stops your blank from wobbling when you're threading it. If you can do it without it, but you have danger that it'll wobble and you'll cut a slightly crooked thread. So everything's in position now, and I'm ready to start threading. Okay, that's it, and it's done. So with a plunge router, it's easy to plunge it, unplunge it, and I can screw back this out now, which is easy. And there we have the complete thread. You can see the contrast between the perfect threads here and here. They're a little bit fuzzy. It's because the blank is a teeny bit fatter here and the edges of the bit weren't quite cutting away the thread. But that's okay. I always leave the drive centers on the screw, so I can just pop it back in the lathe and just skim that off with a skew, and that'll be perfect. And of course, a proof of the pudding is, does it screw on easily onto a nut? And yes, it does. So that's perfect. You want screw threads loose but not sloppy, and they'll work for you at all seasons of the year then. So that's it, success, done. We're now ready to make ourselves a large wooden screwed vise or anything else we choose to make from it. So this is my favourite application for a wooden screw, a tail vise for a workbench, and it gives you plenty of action, nice and smooth.